Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible equinety stories and how equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We are swinging up into Delaware this week. We've got David Teets Jr. on the call. David, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the invite.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And also, you've got a very full background. You're active military, so thank you so much for your service. And
yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet. And you also are a family of rodeoers. So you
yes,
are.
Sir, we try.
So, you know, one of the things that we're going to talk about on this podcast and being active military, you're having to move around all the time. So you're in different environments. There's nothing that's just that you can, you know, literally plan for long term because you're always changing, which brings a lot of challenges with horses and different feeding programs because of the environments. And so let's talk about, well, let's just start from the beginning. How long have you been in the military? How long have you been rodeoing? And then we'll just kind of ebb and flow this thing.
Yes, sir. So I've been in the Air Force over 20 years now. Just hit 20 in July of last year. My wife is active duty 18 years. She's actually, she was born into it. She's an Air Force brat, born into it. So she's been doing this her entire life. And obviously, like you said, with the horses, it brings an interesting aspect to the moving. Some guys get lucky and they don't move around a lot. But with my wife and I both being active, it's kind of our career path. If one goes, we both go. And so I want to say in the last 5 years, I think we've moved about 4 times, which isn't the norm for most, but it definitely takes a toll when you ask your horses to get in the trailer and find somewhere else in the country to move to and the challenges that it brings with it.
Yeah, I bet. So how long have you been in the rodeo scene?
So I've been doing this now pretty serious. Probably for about 10, 11 years. Basically, I got into it real hard and heavy when we were both stationed in San Antonio. My wife, she grew up barrel racing all around the country. But when we were in San Antonio, I really took to the rope and kind of put 100, 150% into it to get to where we are now. And yeah, so it's been a big part of our life. Jennifer and I are both directors for the Armed Forces Rodeo, which is called PAFRA, Professional Armed Forces Rodeo Association, where we have a World Finals every year in October in Topeka, Kansas. And so that's a lot of fun. We bring in veterans from all over the place. Some are, overseas. Some are here in the States. We've got a lot of people from Alaska. But it's a ton of fun. Any veteran or their spouse or dependents under 19 can compete. It's a 3-day thing. And I know this year's our 20th anniversary, and it's supposed to be actually televised on Wrangler Network.
Nice. Is there a website or we can post it in the where the podcast is listened?
Yes, I believe it's just pafra.com. It's changed a couple of times. I have to double check. But we also have, it's on Facebook as well, Professional Armed Forces Rodeo Association. And we're always recruiting anyone that's prior to military or that's married to military and maybe your spouse that's active or the vet is not into it, but you want to, you're more than welcome to compete. We have a ton of fun.
Oh, that's great. That is great. So, and how old is your son now?
Antonio, he is 7 years old right now. He really got into it big this year, started riding last year, but it's just, he skyrocketed this year for sure.
Well, I know you send me often every time. It seems very often, but I know with your travels, it's been broken up a little bit. But you're always sending me
yes,
pictures,
sir. And
he's got probably more buckles than most that have been doing this for many years.
Yes, sir. He's definitely been having some great success. It helps when he gets to ride mom's a good barrel horse and go out there and compete with the youth. That definitely helps his advantages. But he just got. I think I sent you a picture. He just got a buckle in the mail, I think 2 days ago from before we left Cheyenne. They were finishing everything out. Obviously, COVID had things behind, but they just sent, he was the boys' goat tying champ out in Cheyenne, which was funny because him at 7 years old, the other kids his age were doing the goat tying where you take the ribbon off the tail and stuff, or the goat tail. So, but he was actually competing with some of the teenagers and somehow pulled out the season victory. So he's pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I bet so. That's awesome. So let's get into a little bit of some of the challenges, and we'll talk before you found out about the Equinety products.
Yes, sir.
What were some of the challenges you were dealing with, prior to that, with all of the moving and the different environmental changes and supplements? What were some of the challenges that you were facing?
So my main horse was obviously my main concern. All of our horses are on the products, but my horse, we picked her up in San Antonio years ago, raised her, and she went from San Antonio to Tucson to, we lived in the Virginia, D.C. area, then got orders out to Cheyenne, and now here back on the East Coast out in Delaware. So she's a hard keeper to begin with, and she's wired a little high strung. So I had some concerns just on, how much I push her and does she look as healthy as I want her to be. I know the big thing was, I reached out about the products and we had talked, and I asked for some education, help me out here. I want my horse to, at least if she doesn't look, like some of these other ones, I need to know that she feels like those other ones. And so I needed to find something that was consistent for her, that no matter where we were going to move, and hay quality might change while we're getting settled in, things of that nature, that I knew that she was going to have the health benefits that I was looking for, and it's worked out great.
Yeah, so you've been using, you started off with your Equinety Horse Excel in about almost a year ago.
Right.
What were some of the changes that you saw, and how quickly did you see them just by using the product? Because I know we were talking before we got on the podcast, and you'd tried a lot of other different supplements and things like that. But what were some of the specifics around the Equinety Horse Excel?
So the biggest thing was that I didn't want any kind of supplement that was going to make her stressed out or more high strung than what she already was. That was a main concern. And so as we started her on the products, as we spoke about, was it didn't change her anxiety levels, which was super important to me. I needed her to stay as calm and level headed as possible. So that was one of the positive things right away that I noticed is, hey, look, she's not acting different. But I could tell over time that she just started to look healthier. She started to look like I hadn't run her into the ground. You could notice right away that, she wasn't stressed. She started to look better. Her coat started to look a little better. And this was, I think, beginning of April. So this was, the winter had taken a toll on her up there in Cheyenne. And it had been 4 or 5 months deep into the colder, windier weather. And I noticed probably within, 30, 45 days, a drastic change just in the way that she looked, but also the way that she began to ride and things like that.
Yeah. So, and then specifically with her being a hard keeper, somewhat hot-headed, environmental changes, and did she just seem more balanced, just low key?
Well, she didn't seem, especially with the wind and the weather up there, right? They already get stressed out and somewhat flighty already. That was the biggest thing that I noticed was, she started to, over the time I could tell that she started to fill out a little bit, because I feel like that was part of her issue, was being with the hard keeper. The anxiety was just wearing her out at the same time, and that weather wasn't helping. So I noticed that as she started to level out and was getting the nutrition that she needed on top of the good feed that we were giving her, she looked like a totally different horse. It was, like I said, 45, 60 days later, and just maintained it. Not like she got overfed and started to get more excitable or not listen as well. She was the same great horse, just looked a lot better. And I know, we talked about it as well. Her feet have always been a concern of mine. And I could tell that her hooves were getting stronger, the soles were stronger, and she wasn't so, she could get sore here and there on the bottom of her feet. She didn't have those issues either, but definitely focus and the way that she looked was much different.
Sure. And you had mentioned to me earlier too, with, having a lot of different horses, and this one in particular has white hooves, so therefore they're somewhat prone to having more issues than others.
Yes, sir.
So just by using the products now for about a year, how would you rate the quality of sole depth and just overall hoof quality?
Definitely 10 times better than it was. And that sounds crazy, but like I said, her feet before, she's always had to have shoes. I keep her shod all the time just because I know that she gets sore, whether it's rocks or whatever the case may be. She's the first one to shy away from those things. So I always keep her with shoes on just to kind of keep her off the rocks a little bit. But, I just put some new shoes on Saturday, Monday. So 2 days ago, we put some new shoes on, and as wet and not nasty as it is out here, her feet were still very solid. They didn't seem to be soft. They were growing just fine, which was surprising to me because I would have thought with all the standing water that's been out here for quite a while in Delaware, we've been here about 60 days now, that would have taken a toll on her, and surprisingly, it really didn't.
That's great. Now, one of the other challenges, and we hear this a lot in, the professional world where people are hauling their horses all over the place, and a lot of times they've got many horses to choose from depending on what they're doing.
Correct.
And you don't have that luxury so much. So tell us more about that.
So before we got here, we were just fortunate. The Air Force base that we were assigned to in Cheyenne actually had a horse barn, and so we helped run that, and it's reasonably priced, so not an issue there. We had a couple extra horses, but then we come out to the East Coast, and it's a lot of unknowns for us, right? We didn't have a barn on the Air Force installation. We had to find somebody off base to house them, and obviously, if anyone knows, you got 2 or 3 horses, that's pricey enough. But when you've got more than that, it starts to get extremely expensive. So we downsized before we got here, and we kept our 2 good ones. Or actually, we kept our 2 really good ones and 2 backups. So this mare specifically, Star, that we're talking about, she's my go-to for everything. She's great. So we obviously keep her, and then my wife's good barrel horse. But that's the thing is, her being my number one. Oftentimes she's got to be all around, and it may not be fair to her, but that's just kind of how it goes. So keeping her consistent to where I can go from one event to another is extremely important, because I don't have the nicety of having a lot of backups. Just with the unknowns of us moving and where we're going to go to, it's hard for us to maintain a calf roping horse, team roping horse, or whatever the case may be, in multiple backups. Until we retire, it's kind of going to be how it is.
Sure.
But yeah, so she kind of fills in, and like I said on Saturday, she did great. We won the calf roping out here, and then we go right into the team roping right afterwards. It's just how it is for her. So me keeping her in a state to where she can take multiple runs in one day, if you will, and bounce back from it quite quickly is what I need.
Right. So initially you were using the Equinety Horse XL, which you still are, but then you also added the other product that we have. We brought this out in March of 2020. It's called Equinety Ultimate OEC, which is a flaxseed-based omega-3. It's got 1,000 IUs of natural vitamin E and colloidal silver all in one.
Yes, sir.
Did you notice, or what did you notice by adding the OEC product to the Horse XL?
So I think the biggest thing with my horse is she can be quite clumsy, if you will, and for some reason she's always banged up, whether it's in the trailer or out in the field. She has always got nicks and cuts all over the place, specifically her legs. And so I have noticed that her legs have maintained normal stature in terms of, they haven't been a lot of inflammation, things like that. So I think it's helping that way, because, before we were on the product, like I said, she's always banging it, specifically her back legs. I don't know what it is, but if she can find something to hit her back legs on, she does. And there's been times where I've had to take a break from some events just because the swelling and whatever the case may be. And so this is the only thing I can attribute it to, because we made it all the way across the country. Went from, Wyoming to Oklahoma, went there for a little bit, and made our way up to this assignment. And she's been doing great for the last 60 days without any major major issues to those legs.
Yeah, that's great. Well, for those who are tuning in for the first time, and maybe you've seen our ads on social media, or you've had somebody in your barn using it, or you've heard about it from somewhere, what this product actually is, there's two products. So the Equinety Horse Excel, we've been on the market 7 years with this. It's 100% pure amino acids. There's no fillers, no sugars, no starches, and there's no loading dose. And what it's specifically doing is giving the horse what it needs to release its own repairing hormones. And when you can get the horse to release its own repairing hormones, and the body is able to now send its own hormones to the problem areas, which is why it helps in so many ways. So, I'd say, 99% of all the testimonials that people read out there are coming from the Horse Excel. The reason why we came out with the Ultimate OEC, Dr. Brugan out of Arkansas had been using our product for about a year, and he had reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about coming out with another product?" I said, "Well, not for the sake of coming out with one." And he says, "Yeah, that makes sense." I said, "Well, it just has to work with what we have." And he says, "Okay, that makes sense." He goes, "Well, I'm a big fan of oils." I'm like, "No." There's so many oils on the market. And he says, "Well, there's nothing like this." I said, "Okay, well, you have my attention." And so with so many, oils being on the market, there's some great ones out there, but the combination that we came up with, one, we wanted a flaxseed-based omega-3 oil, which helps reduce inflammation. We wanted natural vitamin E, which also helps reduce inflammation. And then the colloidal silver added into this also helps with reducing inflammation, among other things. There's a lot of other benefits to these, but what you have is a really power-packed ingredients in this, these three main ingredients that really help reduce inflammation, which is a cause of a lot of the problems in people and horses and everything else. So that's one aspect of it. The second thing is working in combination with the amino acids, where the amino acids are giving the body what it needs to help repair at the cellular level. This OEC product is giving those repaired cells some nutrition. And so that's why they work so well together. I always tell people, if you just have to choose one over the other, always go with the amino acids, because that's going to help the repair process. And people typically see results in 30 days or less. And then when they add the OEC, then there's just a lot of other benefits that come along with that, helping to keep those cells operating at their optimal levels. So, and it's so important, especially in your environment where you're changing environments all the time, and you've had to consolidate to only having, we'll say fewer horses than what you would typically have to have, and you have to keep these horses in the top shape because they're having to be all around.
Yes, sir.
And, they may not be the best horse. However, you're keeping them the best that they possibly can be by, allowing the bodies to help repair themselves, which, is so important.
Right. And I think that, a big push point for me when I was curious on the product and nervous at the same time over, is this gonna wire my horse like other things have? Is this gonna, work in the negative instead of the positive? And to me, once I started doing the research, it was a no-brainer, just because, it's funny because I go in there and I might jump on a treadmill or jump on the elliptical because right now, the weather's got me determined from long outside. But, I always grab my water and my amino acids at the exact same time. And I thought, if I'm doing it, like, what's the difference? How can this not benefit my mare in this case? Because it just would make no sense for me to use like products and not expect it to help my horse out. So no surprise, it was a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get a little bit more in depth on the sciencey part, since you kind of brought it up, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So whether it's us or, any mammals, when we eat protein, the challenge with the protein molecule is it's too big to be absorbed. And so the body has to break it down into amino acids where they can be absorbed. And so our product, the Equinety Horse Excel, is already in the amino acid stage. And so that's why it starts working in 24 hours, and why the majority, and I say upper 90 percentile of people, do see positive changes in 30 days or less. And the great thing is there's not any negative side effects to it whatsoever. You can use it with any medications or any situation. It's pretty remarkable. But we're definitely blessed for sure, because it's really helped these horses in a lot of ways. But well, this has been pretty awesome. I know it's going to be really helpful for those that are looking for something that's going to help. I mean, kind of just cliff noting this whole thing, just with the environmental changes, your hard keeper, hot-headed mare, just kind of leveled her out, non-stressed.
Yes, sir.
It's kept your performance horses in top condition. The one in particular, the hooves are in great shape, which has always been kind of a challenge. Is there anything else that maybe somebody's tuning into this and like, well, I don't know, this sounds too good to be true? Now, I will mention this. This is not a miracle supplement or supplements, by the way.
Right.
I mean, you still have to have horses that, of performance horse wise, you still have to have the genes there, but it just helps keep them there. But these products work on any horses, whether it be pasture ornaments or rescue horses or anything like that. But is there anything that you might want to say to anybody that still might be on the fence of thinking, well,
the big thing is it's not just me. I've noticed all these things, but it's funny because I swear last week my wife was all over me. David, we're running low. David, we need to running low. We got to get, stock back up on this because, she rides a completely different horse and she's noticed it with her barrel horse, Gunner. He has done great on the products, and for her to make sure that, hey, look, we don't run low because we don't want to run out and start these guys all over. Want to keep them going with her big races going on. She's 100% on board. So this isn't just me. This is a household thing, and we've noticed it on different horses. I spoke mainly on my main horse, but she has noticed the same things with hers, and obviously she doesn't want her barrel horse to get overly excited or extremely hot or lose focus, especially with these big drives that we're taking. Want to make sure that we leave all three cans standing and that we give it the best that we can. So that's what I would say is it's not just me. We're riding different horses, and she's just as adamant about the products as I am.
Yeah, that's great. Well, David Teets out of Delaware, thank you so much for taking the time here to share your story on the Equinety Podcast.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure. I appreciate it. I thank you for informing me 11 months ago that, hey, this is the real deal, and this is kind of how it works. Giving me the background, you've been very, very good at educating me. I am not a vet by nature, nor am I the expert. So I rely on the experts, and I jumped on board, and I'm glad that I did. No regrets. Yeah,
that is awesome. And it's one of the reasons why I started putting these podcasts out. We've got, at the time of this recording, about 100 of them up there, and they're everything from one extreme to another. And it was really a way to capture stories like this. People from all different walks of life. Their horses are doing completely different things. And it was, again, just a way to capture these stories to hopefully help other folks that are looking for, a solution to help their situation. So yes, sir, and I appreciate it. Yeah, well, I appreciate your time with this, and again, appreciate your service, active military, and thank you so much. Yes, sir, appreciate it.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.